I get a number of technical questions on the channel, and I do my best to answer a lot of those by just responding to your queries on the channel or doing a mailbag. But some of them are a little bit more technical, and this is one. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to back up and restore one of these. Okay. But before we start, let's get into the normal parish notices. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when content like this hits the channel, that's the bell icon. Hit the bell icon now. If you enjoy the contents of this video, give it that big thumbs up. It really helps. Become a member of the TMTG community. The address is down there, as are the Facebook and Instagram feeds where all the channel notices are posted. But now back to the video about this thing. Way back in version 1.1 of the firmware, Roland gave you the option to back up and restore this thing. It wasn't in the base release. Whether it was an omission or whether it was something that came out of the sort of the first release and the feedback from users, I do not know. But it came in version 1.1, not 1.0. And the issue really that was facing users when they got hold of this thing was, if you look down here, you can see there are 8 buttons there. There are actually 8 buttons of 8 patches. 8 buttons, 8 banks of 8 patches. 64 patches if you do the maths. Once you've exceeded that, you couldn't, without erasing a former patch, store any more. And that was the problem that Roland were trying to solve at that point in time. And I've had many questions on the channel about this functionality, and it really is quite simple, so I'm going to walk you through it. It was easier to walk you through it than it is to talk about it. Now, there was another way of backing up and restoring this thing, and that was using the Roland plug out feature as a system librarian. Now, the problem with that is, number one, the original plug out will probably no longer work on the later versions of Mac and Windows, so that's going to stop working at some point. If it still works for you guys, don't upgrade. The new Roland Cloud Manager obviously requires you to have a subscription to the cloud for you to be able to operate the cloud plugin there. So that's another one that's a little bit interesting, and that will be covered in another video because I've been doing some research on that, so that's an upcoming video. Now, before we do the walkthrough on this, a couple of points. First is you need to ensure this is at least at version 1.1. So if you bought a base version, a version that's still at base release, and hopefully now if you bought one of these recently, it's going to be at least more than 1.1. But I'd recommend, because there's no advantage to staying on an early version of firmware, that you upgrade this thing to 1.3, which I think is the current version of the firmware. And that's definitely what I've got written down in my notes here. And the second point is, make sure your computer, whatever computer you're using, whether it be a Mac or Windows, is using the latest version of the drivers for your operating system. So remember, Catalina is now a 64-bit only environment. Windows 10 will definitely have 32-bit and 64 bits drivers, but I suspect it's going the same way. But just to bear in mind, make sure your computer is at the right level of operating system. Now, if you don't know how to do those how to do those upgrades, I have done videos in the past that allow you to do that. There will be links down below to those videos. So, guys, if you want to do the upgrades, go check them out. They will tell you how to do it, and then you can come back and you can do the backup and restore process. So let's get on with it. First, we're going to deal with backing up the System-1. So as you can see, System-1's unplugged from the computer at the moment, and it's also switched off. So if I were to do this, find the on-off button, there you go. And then we have the System-1 ready for operation. Now, in order to start this process, we have to first of all switch it off. And what we do is we switch it back on and we hold down this key here, which is the arpeggio key, and we switch it back on like so. And you'll know it's come up in a strange mode because down here you've got the key hold and the mod buttons, and you'll see that these scatter lights are flashing. So the next thing we need to do at this point is we need to connect it to the computer. So there's my USB, and I'm not looking at the back of this thing, so I'm going to do this by feel. Like so. And what we should now see on the computer is a new drive arrive. And that drive has now arrived. There it is, System-1. So if I double click on that, and what you can see on the on this new drive, effectively what's happened is the System-1 is presenting itself to the computer as an external hard drive. There are two folders in here. One folder is called Backup, and if we look in Backup, what we see is a whole raft of patches. In fact, if you were to count that, there will be 128 patches there. And that's made up effectively of plug out patches, so whatever plug out you have loaded on this thing, under that plug out button, that's the plug out patches that are on here. And then we have effectively System-1 patches, which is for that button there. So when I started this video, I said there were 64 patches on this thing. Actually, there are 128 patches because there's 64 for that and 64 for that one. Okay. Now, to back these up, this is how easy it is. You effectively take the top, or you select the patches you want to back up. In this case, I'm going to take the lot, like so. Let's do that. Oops, no, I didn't want to do that, did I? Press the wrong button. Let's go back to the top, like so, and then we go back to the bottom, like so, and we say select all, there you go. And I'm going to effectively tell it I want to copy, so copy, and I'm going to select a location on my desktop, which is called relocated items, and I'm going to put them there. And it's asking me for a password because I'm copying from a hard drive for the first time. And there you go. 128 patches copied from the System-1 to my computer. Now, in order to be able to use the System-1 again, what I now have to do is I have to eject the System-1 from the computer. There are many ways of doing that. There is this way, which is just hit the eject button like so, or you can copy it into the trash. I tend to do this, and there you go. System-1 is now disconnected. And then in order to use the System-1, of course, what we now need to do is we go into here, we switch it off, and we switch it on. And guys, that is as difficult as it becomes backing up the System-1. So now we've backed it up, we need to restore it. And there is a quirk in this, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But first of all, we have to put this into restore mode. So we turn it off. We again press the arpeggio key, and we switch it back on. And now this machine is in restore and backup mode. As you can see, these two keys are on, and the scatter lights are flashing. Now we're going to connect it to the computer, as we did before on the backup. Do this by feel, the wrong way around. Do it every single time. There we go. And we wait for it to appear on the computer screen as a drive. This takes a couple of minutes, or can take several seconds, not minutes. And there you go, the System-1 has now appeared as a drive on the computer screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the drive on the System-1. So we'll click that. And again, here we have the backup and restore folders. If we look in the restore folder, there is nothing. If we look in the backup folder, we could do a backup. It's universal at this point. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a restore. Now, here is the quirk. Whereas you can copy out 128 patches in one go, you can only copy in 64. Don't know why. That's the limitations. Otherwise, you'll get a disk full error message. So we'll go into relocated items like so, and we'll take the 64 patches like that, and we'll say we want to copy those. Where's the copy? There's the copy. We'll go back to the System-1. We'll go into the restore folder, and we'll paste those 64 patches. Right. The machine's now telling, the computer's now telling me they have all now been reposted to the System-1. We now need to eject the System-1 from the computer, which we do by hitting the eject key on the Mac. And we now disconnect the USB cable to start the process. And you know the process is running because these up and down keys start to alternatively flash. And again, this can take several seconds to complete. And then that's it, it's done. These two buttons have stopped flashing, which means the process has completed. Now we want to put the System 8 back into play mode, switch it off, and switch it back on. And that is the process for backing up and restoring the System-1. Remember, guys and girls, if you got this far and you enjoyed the video, give it that thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Otherwise, live long and prosper, and I'll see you on the next technical video. Bye-bye.